tell your friends, tell them, hey, don't be boring. Put a Volvo engine in your project. You won't regret it. Last time I told you everything's still wrong with the C30. Unfortunately, some of the things, well, they turned out to be a little more expensive and a hell of a lot more time consuming than I had anticipated. So today we're going to take a step away from the C30, and I figured it'd be fun to talk about the 5 best engines Volvo's ever made. The C30's behind me, and a couple of the issues, well, like I said, they turned out a little more labor intensive and costly than I had originally anticipated. The big one is what I thought was a clutch return spring being bad. Turns out that's the clutch master cylinder being bad. Now, while not a crazy expensive part, it is, from what I'm told, a very labor-intensive job, similar for our cooling and all that other stuff. So I have to accumulate parts. I have to figure some stuff out. So I'm going to take today to talk about, well, Volvo engines. You guys love Volvos. I think Volvo has a lot of really unique engines, really awesome engines. So we're going to sit here and talk about them. Volvo engines, you know a lot of them. We've experienced actually quite a few of them actually now. In addition to my T5, the White Block and Greg's VR, and same engine in Hanson's VR, we've also done some reviews of the new engines. Greg just launched a great video on the V8 in the S80s. So we've actually experienced more engines than I thought when I first started writing this episode down. So before we get into the 5, I just want to make honorable mention to the Scion Racing V8. This is the V8 that Volvo uses in the Australian V8 Supercar series. It's an absolute beast. It's an absolute monster of an engine. I would probably do pretty bad things to get my hands on one of those. It's just an awesome race-built V8. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to talk about engines that were in Volvo's road cars. And to kick off the list, we're talking about the most modern engine on the list, and that's Volvo's 2-liter 4-cylinder that's been twin-charged. So it's got supercharging and turbocharging. I had the opportunity to experience this engine when I had the brand new 2019 Volvo S60 R Design T6, I believe, or I think T6. That means it was supercharged, turbocharged. It wasn't the T8, which had the hybrid system on it. And that engine was awesome. It had over 300 horsepower from a little 2-liter engine, which is great power. And it was really seamless power delivery. It felt like a turbocharged engine. You never really got the sense that there was a supercharger there doing anything other than the engine just felt way bigger in capacity than it actually was. What let that engine down, and it wasn't really the engine's fault, was the fact that the transmission behind it was slow, dim-witted. It made decent upshifts, but downshifts took a year and a day, and it really let that car down. That car with a great transmission and the hybrid powertrain, over 400 horsepower, makes it an awesome driver's machine, and frankly, in my opinion, the best of the modern Volvos, or the new Volvos, I should say. Number 4 on the list is the Straight 6. The Volvo Straight 6 that used to call, I believe, the S80 home. Straight 6s in general are just awesome engines. They're by design, they're super smooth engines, which makes them great for luxury cars. They're also super balanced, so you can throw a lot of horsepower at them via the aftermarket. 2J, 1J, the RB family of engines, the S64 from BMW. These are all some of the most iconic engines ever made, and Volvo made a Straight 6 that you're seeing people start to swap into other chassis like 240s and things like that to make a truly unique ride, because you throw a little boost at it. These engines, now they're not as stout as, say, the Japanese engines or anything like that, but then again, very few engines are, but you can make really good power on it. They make a hell of an awesome noise, and really, it's just a great engine to start with, and like most of these engines from Volvo, they're not crazy expensive. Number 3, and that is the 4.4-liter V8 jointly developed by Yamaha. The crazy thing is that Yamaha did a lot with automotive engines. We think of them as motorcycle engine builders. We think of them as, making musical instruments, and back in the day, they even made golf clubs for a while. But they helped Volvo out on this V8. It's not uncommon, like I said. Yamaha had a hand in helping Toyota design the heads for the 1JZ. V8s in general sound awesome. The Volvo unit is no different. It has a couple little issues. Correct me. Oh, well, I shouldn't ask this question. You will definitely correct me if I'm wrong on this, but as far as I know, the Achilles heel on these engines has to do with an inspection hole or something like that in the block or around the block itself, having to do with the balance shaft since it's a narrow V8. But basically, water can get in there and things like that, so it's something that either gets plugged up or. But other than that, these engines are hugely capable. 600, 650 horsepower with a little bit of boost is within reason, and I don't know, that sounds pretty tasty if we had, say, an older chassis that we weren't sure on what engine we were going to use. Yeah, the 240 wagon that we have, or I should say Greg has, I feel like this engine is a prime candidate for it. They're about $1,000 if you want to go and buy them on like eBay or other places you can buy used motors. Turbo kit wouldn't necessarily cost a ton. You don't need huge monster turbos. You can go single or double. You just need the fab work for manifolds and things like that. But that V8 backed up by, say, a T56 or a CD009, which aren't crazy expensive. I'm trying hard to think of a better kind of daily driver than a 600 horsepower wagon that looks like a box, goes like hell. But yeah, but these engines are awesome, and probably they're pretty up there with my favorite Volvo engines. It'd probably be the engine I would purchase next with it, but Volvo's known for basically two engines. This is where it gets kind of tricky for me because they're both really, really awesome in their own ways. One can make a hell of a lot of power. Well, they both can make a hell of a lot of power depending on how deep your pocketbook is. But it's kind of not 1 and 2, 1A and 1B, but it's a list, so I got to pick a number 2, and that would be the Red Block. The Red Block is an older engine back from when engineers were really over-engineering blocks and things like that. You know, the 2J is a legend because it can handle a shit ton of horsepower because it's an cast iron block. It's way over engineered, and you can get near 1,000 horsepower on stock internals, which is nuts. Now, the Red Block isn't quite on that level, but you can get 300 horsepower out of them without touching anything. And if you want to go crazy with them, you can make as much horsepower as you want with these things. They are, I don't want to say bulletproof because no engine is 100% bulletproof, but they are super reliable. They take to mods really, really well, and there's a big aftermarket for them. So they are just phenomenal engines through and through. Yes, we have one in our 240, but that seems like the obvious answer to me. But it's Greg's car, so he'll do what he wants with it. But if he stuck with the Red Block, got it built, and made 600, 700 horsepower with it, I don't think I'd be mad at it. So, I mean, the Red Blocks haven't gotten their legendary status by accident. Let's just put it that way. By the power of deduction, you should be able to figure out what number 1 is on this list. It's really the only other great engine Volvo made, and those are the white blocks. They came in a ton of different variants. We have one in ours, but our 2.5 is different than the 2.5 in Greg's VR, and so on and so forth. I'm kind of narrowing it down to the 2.5 liter like the one in Greg's car, and the 2.4 liter that came in the more standard P2 platforms. And it really boils down to just the noise these engines produce. This engine produces a really satisfying growl. Those things howl like a miniature V10, and it sound. Don't tell Greg this, but it makes his car sound so good, and it sounds better than my car. I have to admit it. It sounds so awesome. The only downside is like the 2.5 liter. You got to do a lot of block strengthening to really get any big numbers at it. I know Greg's making 450 horsepower, and that's nothing to sneeze at in any car. But to really go beyond that, in addition to the shims he's already done, there's sleeves, there's pistons, there's rod, and it starts to kind of stack up as far as that. I mean, you can alleviate this by going with a 2.4 liter, which has a little bit thicker cylinder walls, can handle a little bit more power. It really just boils down to the sound these engines make. It just, again, sounds like a miniature V10 just howling down the street. And what makes it even better is when it's in, say, Greg's car, and you hear this howl and this scream, and this car is coming at you. wagon. Like, I don't know. To me, that's just super, super cool. But that's it. Those are the 5. I mean, I know Volvo it's not like Toyota or Nissan or BMW or even the American manufacturers with all their engines and everything like that. Yeah, any one of these engines would be really cool to throw in kind of any project. So take your K24s and your, SR20s and all these other Japanese 4-cylinders that people are throwing in, say, Miatas and things like that. How about we put a white block in a Miata? I don't know. Sounds pretty good to me. Hell, why don't we throw any of these engines in a Miata and you'll end up with something that at least makes 300 horsepower, goes like hell, sounds awesome. But that's my list. You probably disagree with me, and that's the beauty of the internet, because you're more than welcome to. I just want to thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, smash that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. That way you get all of the Shifting Lane stuff the moment we release it. If you want to help support the channel, you can head on down to our Teespring account right below me here and get yourself some awesome swag. This is a Volvo video. We have all sorts of stuff. S60R, V70R, C30, the Hellwinkle shirts, all of that stuff. Head on down. It's pretty competitively priced. And the best part about it is you end up with an awesome piece of swag, and we get some money that we can throw back into our cars and make more content for you, because that's exactly what we do. 100% of the money we make, we put back into our cars, into creating content. If you want to follow Shifting Lanes on social media, it's at Shifting Lanes. If you want to continue the conversation, feel free to hit me up. I'm at Chenedy83. I really love talking to you guys. I've met a lot of really cool people talking about their projects, this sort of thing. So keep them coming. I appreciate all you guys who have taken your time to reach out to me, even though sometimes I don't have the right answer. And by sometimes, I mean a lot of the times, because I'm by no means an expert. But that's a wrap on this one, guys. Hopefully next time we're either going to be diving into the C30, or I might have something else for you guys. It really depends on when parts and stuff get here and when I have time to actually tear in and work on the car itself. But Volvo engines, not a lot of people know about them, but they should definitely be using them for more swaps. So share this video, tell your friends, tell them, hey, don't be boring. Put a Volvo engine in your project. You won't regret it. But this one's a wrap. I will catch you guys next time.